he's enjoying
So he's reliving it.
Oh, he might as well be masturbating. It's disgusting. Hello, everyone, and welcome back today. Paul, how are you, first of all?
I'm very good. I'm very good. A little bit skeptical now today because I'm so far outside my comfort zones with these videos that it's not even funny. I'm used to being the expert in the room.
Well, you still are, I think. And then Chris Watts, you got so spot on. You were so accurate.
Yeah,
so,
it might be a fluke, though.
Well,
it might be a fluke.
We'll see. Well, today is less of a guessing game because we know who this person is. And, well, I know, obviously.
Well, exactly.
This is a man called Dennis Rader. Man is a loose term. He is an evil monster. His nickname was BTK, which stood for Bind, Torture, Kill. And his MO was to go into people's homes and do just that. He would choose... He was not sort of selective. He would usually go for single women, but he also went for families and husbands, wives, children as well. In this video, he's confessing. He's explaining his crimes. So actually, I will put a trigger warning onto people. This is graphic. This video, there's graphic descriptions of what he did. It is hard going. The very interesting thing about this man is that he went dormant for a very long time. So one of the things that he did, I know, your face, one of the things that he did whilst he was active was communicate with the press through letters and things. And the way he got...
Really?
Yeah, and then the way he got caught in the end was it had been, I think, I'm guessing now, but around 15 to 20 years since he had last murdered someone. It might have been less than that, might have been about 10. But he had gone dormant for a very long period of time, which is very unusual in serial killers. And as I'm sure you're aware, and it was wondered for a long time what had happened because he hadn't been caught, of course. So people thought maybe he had died or was in prison or something, he'd been convicted of some other crime that hadn't been tied to this. And then he started communicating with the police again and the press again. And he got caught. This is just wonderful because it's such evidence of the grandiosity and the delusion of grandiosity and superiority, where he wrote to the police and said, if I send you a floppy disk, because this was back in those days when we had floppy disks.
You remember those? I remember
do, of
those.
Of course, yeah. 4 hours to load, weren't they? He asked the police, if I send you this floppy disk, will you be able to trace me? Will you be able to find who I am? And of course,
interesting.
The police said, no, you're perfectly safe. Send us this disc. He sent the disc and they found him. And where they found him was in a church, working in the church. I can't remember what his job role was, but quite high up in, I don't think he was the pastor, but he was, active in the community. And that he had a whole family and everything else. And so he was obviously arrested, and this is his confession.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he asked, could you trace me from the floppy disk? Which would suggest that he didn't have a great deal of knowledge about the abilities of the police.
But also that he trusted
or forensics
their
in general, and that he trusted their answer as well. Wow, okay. Let's see.
I'll be fascinated to hear what you make.
I mean, just based on his picture right now, he looks so normal.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? Like how normal. Okay.
Let's start.
Let's go.
I need to find out more information. On that particular day, the 15th day of January, 1974, can you tell me where you went to kill Mr. Joseph Otero?
I think it's 1834. Edgemore.
All right. Can you tell me approximately what time of day you went there?
Somewhere between 7 and 7:30.
This particular location, did you know these people?
No, that's no, that was part of my, I guess my what you call fantasy. These people were selected.
All right, so you
Okay.
you were engaged in some kind of fantasy during this period of time?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, when you use the term fantasy, is this something you were doing for your personal pleasure?
Sexual fantasy, sir.
I see. So you went to this residence, and what occurred then?
Well, I had did some thinking on what I was going to do to either Mrs. Otero or Joseph.
The first thing that strikes me here is the sheer normalcy of his delivery. How, I mean, he's having a conversation about, he could be having a conversation about anything at all.
Toast.
What I did last weekend on a Sunday. You know, we went for a picnic and we did this and we did that or we did the other. It's very, there's a very detached element of it almost, that this is just matter of fact.
It's interesting.
So,
you say
which would
that.
suggest to me that he's very good at compartmentalizing how he thinks and how he does things.
And do you see that often in serial? Because I think Ted Bundy did that, and so did
You see
Israel
this-
Keys.
You do. You see this very much in organized serial killing rather than disorganized serial killing. So organized would be that there's a, I'm able to compartmentalize. So I would suggest that the people around him, when they found out what he did, were shocked, because he probably portrayed himself as a very normal, very probably charming, nice, upstanding member of the community, because this is the way he comes across.
Yeah.
And the way he's talking to his solicitor beside him is very much about, well, did that happen? What do you think? Yeah, I mean, this is discussion. This is in his mind, this is not a, what's the word I'm looking for? This is not a confession in the true sense of the word.
Right.
This is, I'm simply telling you what I have done, rather than I'm confessing what I have done. And I think possibly based on what I'm seeing right here, he probably has a begrudging respect for the police for actually finding him.
Well, he keeps calling him sir, which I think is interesting.
It is, and he's responding to this idea that, you know, anyway, let's watch. But you say that he had a relationship with the press, and he was constantly keeping the press updated. I mean, this is obviously a need for control and power, and to have control over the narrative of him and how he's portrayed and all the rest of it. But there's probably a bit of a cat and mouse game as well. It was probably the thrill of, you can't find me, but also the idea that I'm more intelligent to you, you need to keep up. A bit like cat and mouse, really. Am I on the right track?
I think you probably are, in that he, there's something that when I've heard other interviews of him talking about it, that he almost describes it as though his victims were willing participants.
And this is his job.
Yes, there's a matter of factness about it. There's a well,
this
yes,
is that
and she, of course, she was
compartmentalisation.
upset, but she knew what was going to happen. It was so devoid of any kind of. Do you know what I'm not seeing? And I don't know if I'm right, but I see what I feel I'm seeing is some kind of little boyness, and then on top of that, I'm not seeing shame.
Oh, there's no shame. There's no shame.
Okay.
None
Which
at all.
We did see with Chris Watts, didn't we?
To a degree, but that was shame
Not
at
massive.
being caught, and
Right,
you know,
not-
rather than shame for his crime. He has no shame for his crime at all. If anything, I'd say he's quite proud of it.
I was just going to say the same thing. He seems proud.
Yeah.
It's like, but
In
then
fact,
if you
he's
think
probably angry that he was caught.
well, if you think about the fact that he was communicating with the press and the police, there's something there about him
I mean, that's
having
grandiosity,
pride,
isn't it?
Well, isn't it just? But there's pride in his work, as he might word it. I mean, it's awful. But yeah, let's carry on and see what transpires further.
Josephine, and basically broke into the house, or didn't break into the house, but when they came out of the house, I came in and confronted the family, and then we went from there.
All right. Had you planned this beforehand?
I know, he just like he's teaching a class or something.
It's like, but it's even the wording.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and we went from there. Yeah. Like, this was a natural progression of what was going to happen. It's almost a fait accompli that, well, I'm here, and, you know, this is what I want to do, and this is what has happened, and this is where we're going to go from here. I mean, Jesus, Helen.
Yeah.
To some degree, yes. After I got in the house, I lost control of it, but it was, you know, in the back of my mind, I had some ideas what I was going to do, but I basically panicked that first day. So
beforehand, did you know who was there in the house?
I thought Mrs. Otero and the two kids, the two younger kids, were in the house. I didn't realize Mr. Otero was going to be there.
All right. How did you get?
This is somebody who is giving. This is almost like a customer service agent telling their manager about a complaint that came in, a complaint that they dealt with. Mrs. Otero was there and the two kids, but I didn't realize Mr. I mean, it's so...
Yeah.
It lacks any emotional cadence at all, which in and of itself is terrifying.
But so, because would you have expected... So we would expect not to see... perhaps the remorse or the guilt, but not even to see the kind of enjoyment of being able to talk
exactly.
about it.
I'm not seeing anything. You know, certainly when we talk about this idea, I mean, there's definitely an assumption of grandiosity there because of the interactions with the press and stuff like that. And with that grandiosity, I would expect to see a sense of boasting or a sense of enjoyment or a sense of... look how good I am. But this is delivered like a university professor teaching a class.
That's exactly... Did you hear me say earlier? It's like he's giving a lecture.
I mean, it's just nuts.
I mean, terrifying.
It is.
How did you get into the house?
I came through the back door, cut the phone line.
I'm sorry for keep pausing.
No, it's okay. It's good.
Listen to the voice patterns. Listen to the language patterns. Listen to the pattern of the modulation of how he's talking. This is not a confession. This is a retelling of what has happened. So I know this is obviously in a courtroom and it is a formal confession and all the rest of it, but he's simply, I mean... The voice patterns are so out of whack with the content of what he's talking about. It's wow.
Got the phone lines, waited at the back door, had reservations about even going or just walking away, but pretty soon the door opened and I was in.
Did you see the shoulder shrug?
Yeah.
This was, you know, I went in the back door and this is what happened, and, you know, I went and made myself coffee, and I made a sandwich, and I had a sandwich, and then I murdered them in cold blood.
It's
essentially.
So, it's banal, isn't it? There's just...
It is. It's just...
Devoid.
I mean, it's almost glibness, but not glibness, if that makes sense.
But it's just also so odd to me. So we're going to, at some point, do the Ted Bundy case, and... I'm going to be showing you Ted Bundy in the courtroom interviewing one of the victims, witnesses. And you can see him, or at least I think, because obviously I'm reading his behaviour from in a different way.
In hindsight.
Yeah, but it looks like he's enjoying he interrogates the police officer who came across the scene, and he asks the police officer to describe it. And what I'm not seeing here is he's enjoying
so he's reliving it.
Oh, he might as well be masturbating. It's disgusting.
Okay.
But anyway, but I'm not seeing that here. Yeah, I know. Sorry.
No, there is no reliving this here. You know, for enjoyment or anything. This is quite literally. Well, this is what I did. And I mean, there may be an element of, I was doing all of this and none of you could catch me.
So it might be his
an element of that. Yeah. There's definitely a sense of grandiosity. You can tell that in the delivery. Mm-hmm. But it's a very
because he's got what they want.
Yes.
Well, he's got what they want, and so he's centre of attention.
He is, and
so that's the bit he's enjoying. Maybe
he's definitely. I don't know that I would go as far as say that he's. I mean, he is obviously enjoying himself, but it's not an overt enjoyment of reliving past glories. It's well, of course this is what has happened.
It's so normalizing, isn't it?
If you had caught me sooner, you would know this. That kind of thing.
Oh yeah, you're such idiots.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he there is definitely a sense of you're all troglodytes here and I'm super intelligent.
All right, so the door opened. Was it open for you, or did something?
I think one of the kids, the junior, or not junior, yes, the younger, Joseph opened the door. He probably let the dog out, because the dog was...
Did you tell me that he didn't, did he know his victims, or did he pick them at random?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think from what I remember, he would sort of target them, and then he would do things like cut phone lines and stuff. So he did
because
know
he knows his victims by name.
He knew,
and he's personalizing them.
Yeah.
Here.
So he's research. Yeah, I think he did research on them, and he stalked people. To be able to pounce on them, I suppose. But I don't quite know how. But
the way he's talking about them in a familiar sense. Mm-hmm. He's not distancing himself the way Chris Watts did.
No, and this is what I mean about this intimacy. There's like a, that he suggested that they were willing participants. It feels like...
Did he actually say that?
No.
We're just feeling that.
It feels like he thinks that, well, like you've said, that, well, I came in and they knew exactly what was going to happen, and that was that. And
then we did it.
Yeah.
So, but there's definitely a familiarization here. I mean, he's not distancing himself. He's not even using any distancing language.
Interesting.
The dog was in the house at that time.
All right, when you went into the house, what happened then?
Well, I confronted the family, pulled a pistol, confronted Mr. Otero, and asked him to, that I was there to, basically, I was wanted.
I asked him to do this. I told him this is what I wanted. I mean, it's basically like, a TV repairman coming in to fix your television, saying, I asked him to turn the television off, told him I needed the electricity cut. It's...
nonchalant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
it's terrifying.
What have you made me watch?
Wanted to get the car. I was hungry, food. I was wanted. And
did you hear that sigh? I wanted to get the car, you should already know this. Why are you making me explain it again?
And asked him to lie down in the living room. And at that time I
He's
realized
not stressed
that would be a really good idea.
at all.
So finally, the dog was a real problem, so I asked Mr. Otero if he could get the dog out. So he had one of the kids put it out. And I took him back to the bedroom.
You took who back to the bedroom?
The family, the bedroom, the 4 members.
All right, what happened then?
Okay, so can we pause for a second? From the victim, so how truthful is this? Because why wouldn't the child just run out of the house if he was putting the dog out? And I mean, fear obviously makes you do different things, but Is that true?
Compliance. Yeah, it would be.
Okay.
Compliance. I mean, you have to remember as well, you've got a situation where you're told to go and do something and then come straight back, especially if you're being told by your father.
And there's a scary man. And
there's a scary... Well, is he scary? You know...
Well, he stood there with a gun and he's made them all lie on the living room floor.
But is he talking in this reasonable tone that he is repeating?
I suspect he may well have done.
The dog was a problem, so I asked them to put it outside. Like, what the fuck?
What the fuck? But even that's interesting, that the dog was put outside and not killed. No, but not killed.
Maybe he loved animals.
Okay.
There is sometimes this disconnect between people who are brutal to humans and
Loving
completely empathetic to animals.
Time I tied him up.
While still holding him at gunpoint?
Well, in between tying, yes. Yeah.
I guess.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
But this is also a little bit of grandiosity and superiority coming in. Like, that's a stupid question.
Yeah.
So, while holding the gun, like in between tying him up,
Like,
dickhead.
Dumbass. Yeah.
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 All right, after you tied them up, what occurred?
Well, they started complaining about being tied up, and I re-loosened their bonds a couple of times, tried to make Mr. Otero as comfortable as I could. Currently had a cracked rib from a car accident, so I had him put a pillow down for his head.
Did you hear that?
I mean, I tried to make him as comfortable as I could.
Yes.
Before murdering him in cold blood.
Yeah.
And you said he's what? What did you say BTK stands for?
Bind, torture,
kill. So right now we're at the binding stage.
Mm-hmm.
So the torturing is coming next. And he's just, I was trying to make him as comfortable as possible before I made his life a living hell.
Yeah.
Before killing him. Because, he had a cracked rib from a car, and I'm a good guy, I'm not your normal, usual
I'm not a
murdering
bad
serial
psychopath.
killer. Yeah, I'm, I'm a considerate one.
Yes.
Fuck!
I know. But so this is interesting then. See this disconnect from the reality of the horror of what he's describing.
Yeah.
How does he mask that in, because you know how narcissists, for example, don't always understand why they're saying or what they're saying is so awful. And here he is describing these monstrous acts so nonchalantly and calmly. Then how in society does he not trip himself up by saying something similar? Or do you know what I mean? Is that a clear question?
For sure. I mean, there is an extreme lack of empathy here. On another level, a lack of empathy. So I would imagine that based on that, and based on the behavior that I'm seeing, and also based on you saying that he worked in a church and stuff, I would say that he held positions of authority. Now, you also have to remember, within society, this non-emotional, fair, matter-of-fact way of making decisions is actually seen as a strength. So his delivery as some, like, I loosened his binds and tried to make him as comfortable as possible because he'd just been in a car crash and had damaged his ribs. Now, put that into a different context. They weren't performing properly and they were trying their best, but I had to let them go. It's the same thing. One is a murderous maniac serial killer. One is an understanding, non-emotional boss.
I'm just going to look up what his job is. So do carry on while I...
Okay. While you see what he does. I guarantee you it will be positions of authority. And you're going to see things like where he told people what to do, where he made sure rules were followed, this kind of thing, based on this.
How do you put I think he used Parker or a coat underneath him. They talked to me about, giving the car and whatever money. I guess they didn't have very much money. And there I realized that, I didn't have a mask on or anything. They already could ID me. And made a decision to go ahead and put them down, I guess, or strangle them.
They offered me the car, maybe to get me out. Guess they didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't have a mask on, so I made the decision to go ahead and kill them, basically. So you put that into normal human society, the homeless person has a drug problem, and they don't really do too well, and they needed help. So I made the decision to go ahead and have them locked up.
Would you like to know what he did for a job?
Something in management, right?
Well, it's not actually entirely clear, but he was in the Air Force for 4 years.
And was he an officer, or was he a...
Doesn't say, actually.
It doesn't say.
Mediocre grades at university. Then he worked in a meat department of a supermarket. And then he
worked in a meat department. Did he cut up his victims?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. Although, obviously, we're probably going to hear in a moment. And at one point, installed security alarms as part of his job for a security services firm for people concerned about the BTK killings.
Oh, Christ almighty. Can you imagine? You're getting an alarm put in, and he's the one putting your alarm in. And here's the thing. You wouldn't know, because he's so charming and so nice and so chatty.
And so normal looking.
And so normal. You'd go, well, he was... The guy who put our alarm in was really nice. Yeah, he was. But he also has the override code to your alarm and knows how it works. Terrifying.
So, also... In 1991, this was in 2005, I think, this video. So he was caught in 2004. He was active in 1974 to 1991.
And then he stopped for that
and then
huge...
he stopped, yeah. It's weird, right? So, but in 1991...
What happened in 1991?
Well, he had a family. I don't know what happened when his children were born. But I think in an interview, he actually just said he was too busy. I think he genuinely just said he was...
Fuck!
I know. Like he didn't have time to do it because he had the children. But in 1991, he became a dog catcher and compliance officer in Park City. Neighbours recalled him as being sometimes overzealous and extremely strict, as well as taking special pleasure in bullying and harassing single women. One neighbour complained that Rader killed her dog for no reason, and that he was a member of Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita, and at one point he was elected president of the church council. He was also, this will not surprise you, especially, I think this is going to make you go, well, there it is. He was also a Cub Scout leader.
Oh, fuck me. I mean, okay. So this need for control and authority and compliance, yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that those were jobs that he held at all.
And that he's pursuing them, yeah.
And were probably very good at them and got promoted.
Yeah. Well, it looks like he moved a lot. So I wonder if people did sense something odd about him.
Well, here's the thing about psychopaths and about when you're in danger was you may not know. There will be something eventually, because, you're dealing with somebody with an extreme lack of empathy. You're dealing with somebody who, yes, may be very charming, but will be quite glib in their approach. And your body, your brain will go,
danger.
Things are not adding up here. And over time, you will start distancing yourself and stuff like that. So whilst you may not at the beginning, over time, the brain kind of goes, something's not right.
We talked about this in the Chris Watts thing when I was explaining to you. Do you remember I was saying to you about how people who have a healthy upbringing and don't have like trauma from childhood are more likely to be able to sort of notice that alert system going, something's not right, whereas the
of course, because then you've got this that behavior has been normalized, really, hasn't it?
Yes.
And you know, they don't know any different, so they've been almost desensitized to it and conditioned to it. Absolutely.
Anyway,
I just find his delivery,
it's amazing,
both
like
fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
He's so calm. There's
an extreme lack of empathy here, but it's the cadence that I just can't get over.
Can you explain a bit about the cadence, what you mean? And
he is having a social conversation. So when we confess to something that, you know, think of yourself, you know, if I said, Helen, you smoked cigarettes and you weren't supposed to smoke cigarettes. Did you smoke these cigarettes? You'd go, yeah, I smoked the cigarettes, but I only had one. Whereas if I said to you, Helen, you drank 2 martinis last night, and you'd be like, yeah, I did. I had 2 martinis. They were really nice. They were made with Belvedere vodka. So your cadence changes, and it becomes more inclusive, more social, more...
But there's no shame in it.
Well, no.
Yeah.
But he has no shame. He has no empathy.
None at all.
But also, there's just something here where he's... The pride is not overtly on display, but he's not sorry for what he did.
Well, do you know what's interesting is that reading about his career, what he did for a job, it was saying that his first attempt at university, he did not do very well, mediocre grades is what it said.
So that would have annoyed his narcissistic grandiosity.
Exactly. So what I'm thinking is that this is the thing that makes him special. If we go into the narcissistic side of things, that this is what makes him stand out. And you all want to know this, and I've got this superiority because I have all this information. I get to talk about... I mean, the narcissist loves to talk about
Which goes back to power and authority, doesn't it? And control.
Yeah.
I'm control. And yes, you're right. The narcissist adores being the one with the power and the control and the authority. And you can see that from his jobs, you know, dog catcher.
There's such dominance in that, isn't there? The dog
there
catcher.
is.
It's the decision making.
It is, and it's not just it's not just the act of catching the dog. It's also the act of you have to convince me to give you your dog back,
and not to kill it because he killed
and not
one.
to kill it. I mean, fuck me.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What did you do to Joseph Otero? Sr.?
Joseph Otero?
Yeah, Joseph Otero Sr., Mr. Otero, the father.
So did you see that this was like Joseph Santoro? So there was, there's obviously, there may have been 2 Joseph Santeros. So this is very much well, which one do you mean? Which one are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why can't you even get your questions right?
Oh, he's horrible.
Can you see if there were 2 Joseph Santeros?
I think this was the son of... Hang on, I will find out. 2 seconds. Yes,
put
the
a plastic
son.
bag
The
over
son.
his head, and then some cords, then tighten it.
This was in the bedroom.
Yes, sir.
Did he, in fact, suffocate and die as a result of this?
Not right away. No, sir, he didn't.
What happened?
No, not right away. You know, it took a little bit of time for him to die.
It was inconvenient.
Yeah, so, you know, I had to wait around.
Yeah.
Well, after that, I did Mrs. Otero. I had never strangled
I
anyone
did, Mrs.
before,
Sotero.
so
What the fuck?
I really didn't know how much pressure you had to put on a person or how long it would take.
Hang on, did you hear that? He said, I'd never done this before, so I didn't know.
Yeah. So I didn't know how much pressure to put on. So, you know, he was basically dying there. So I moved on to her. Okay. Which, of course, is probably means that this is his first kill, and he will learn as he goes along.
This is a bit.
And in
like
fact, they probably got away much easier than any of his other victims because he didn't have any pattern yet.
Yeah, he hadn't practiced.
He didn't have any. Yeah, he didn't have any practice, but he also didn't have any. There was no. The fact that it's bind, torture, kill. The torture element of things is very much about gratification. And when you torture somebody and you prolong their death, it's also about delayed gratification, to keep that gratification going. There's no torture involved here, apart from maybe the psychological torture of being tied up.
You're about to hear some, I don't know if I'm not going to spoil it, as it were. Spoil it? Ugh. The way he's talking about it, it's like he is describing choosing food at a buffet and getting bored of this dish, so I went on to the next dish.
Yeah. It's like, you know, I had the pasta, but I mean, I wanted the lobster.
Yeah.
But was she also tied up there in the bed?
Yes, yeah, both their hands and their feet were tied up. She was on the bed.
Where were the children?
Josephine was on the bed, and Junior was on the floor this time.
So we're talking, first of all, about Joseph Otero. So you'd put the bag over his head and tied it. And he did not die right away. Can you tell me what happened in regards to Joseph?
He moved over real quick, and I think tore a hole in the bag, and I could tell that he was having some problems there. But at that time, the whole family just went panicked on me, so I worked pretty quick.
You worked pretty quick.
Well, I mean, I strangled Mrs. Otero, and she went out, or passed out. I thought she was dead. She passed.
You know, while I was putting their TV in, the family really wanted to watch a TV show, and they were getting really angry, so I installed it as fast as I could, and I'm like, what the fuck?
She passed out. Yeah. Then I strangled Josephine. She passed out, or I thought she was dead, and then I went over and put a bag on Junior's head, and then if I
Did
remember
he feel
right,
something then?
No empathy. Essentially, that intake of breath was. I mean, I'm not proud of this particular thing because, you know, it was quite messy and it's not up to my usual standards.
That's what I'm wondering, you know, because it was the first one. Is it that it didn't go, it's not a good representation of my skill?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that intake of breath and that exhalation that you saw had nothing to do with any sort of feeling for the victims or for anybody else. This was, you know... But I got better at it.
Yeah. Oh. Look at that face. Oh, it's disgusting.
Mrs. Otero came back. She came back and...
Sir, let me ask you about Joseph Otero Sr. You indicated he had torn a hole in the bag. And what did you do with him then?
I put another bag over it, or either that or if I recollect, I think I put either a cloth or a T-shirt or something over his head, and then another bag.
Did he subsequently die?
Well, yes. I didn't just...
You see this body movement, which is essentially, of course he died. What the fuck sort of question is that?
He did. He looked at him now like he was stupid. Like, why? Dumber.
He thinks this line of questioning is a waste of his time.
I thought that,
and
because
I have a
this
feeling
guy keeps coming back to him. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I just have a feeling that because he doesn't, he's not proud of this particular one.
Yes.
And the reason that I would say he's not proud of it is because of him saying, well, this is my first one. That's making an excuse. That's like somebody saying, Helen, you smoked a cigarette. And you go, yeah, but I only had one.
Yeah, it's justifying.
You know, so it's justifying, yeah. So the messiness is not my usual standard of work. Normally, when I kill them, they die. They don't keep waking up. So I'm sorry for this one.
Yeah.
You know?
And so we see this a lot in the serial killer kind of behaviour of the, there's some murders that they don't want to talk about because they didn't represent.
Because they're ashamed of them.
Yes. Because not because of the murder, but because of the way that they went
because
that they didn't
they're
execute
ashamed
it
of
correctly.
It doesn't portray them as the
skillful.
as the skilled hero of the story.
Oh, fucking hell.
And I was moving around the room, but...
All right, so you indicated you strangled Mrs. Otero after you had done this, is that correct?
Now I went back and strangled her again, that finally killed her.
As you know, she kept waking up and stuff. It was highly inconvenient.
Killed her at that time.
So this is in regards to count 2. You first of all put the bag over Joseph Otero's head, and he tore a hole in the bag. Then you went ahead. Did you strangle Mrs. Otero then?
Okay.
Or did you go
First of all, Mr. Otero was strangled, or a bag put over his head and strangled. Then I thought he was going down, and I went over and strangled Mrs. Otero, and I thought she was down. Then I strangled Josephine while she was down, and then I went over to Junior and put the bag on his head. After that, Mrs. Otero woke back up, and, she was pretty upset what's going on. So I came back and, at that point in time, strangled her for the death strangle at that time.
With your hands or what?
No, with a cord, with a rope. And then I think at that point in time, I redid Mr. Otero, put the bag over his head, went over and then took Junior. Before that.
The way he's describing this is very much in terms of how you would describe doing a job.
Yeah.
The language he's using is, I redid it and all the rest of it. So this is very odd language.
Before that, she asked me to save her son. So I actually had taken the bag off, and then I was really upset at that point in time. So basically, when Mr. Otero was down, Mrs. Otero was down, I went ahead and took Junior, I put it in the bag over his head and took him to the other bedroom at that time.
What did you do then?
Did you hear him saying he was being kind to her?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and he was really upset at the time. So he took Junior and put him into another room so that he could die in there.
What the fuck?
He had to put a cloth over his head, a T-shirt, and a bag so he couldn't tear a hole in it. And he subsequently died from that. And then when I went back, Josephine had woke back up.
What did you do then?
And I took her to the basement. And
so essentially, I mean, here we can see that he was beside himself with rage, that these people kept getting up. They just weren't fucking dying.
Yeah.
So he was, and he's trying to make it look as if it's not affecting him because, this was his first time and all the rest of it. But the fact that he said, and I was really upset at that point, basically meant that he was in an absolute blind rage because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. So they weren't complying with his needs. And by dying, he obviously had this idea that all he did was put a bag over somebody's head, tie a knot, and they'd be dead. But these were stubborn, and this annoyed him and upset him.
Oh, Jesus, he's so evil.
and eventually hung her.
Are you hung her in the basement?
Yes, sir.
Did you do anything else at that time?
Yes, I had some sexual fantasies, but that was after she was hung.
All right. What did you do then?
Was necrophilia involved?
Not that I was aware of in this case. I don't know.
As he said, I had some sexual fantasies, but not until after they were dead.
So there is definitely sexual elements. He, in his dormant period, he was basically wearing women's underwear and taking photographs of himself wearing women's underwear during that time. So I'm assuming there was a sexual side to it, but in this one, I'm not sure. I know in others, yes.
In others, did he sexually abuse or rape his victims?
Yes. I'm saying that and I'm going to double check it.
Did you do that?
Went through the house, kind of cleaned it up. It's called the right-hand rule. You go from room to room. Picked everything up. I think I took Mr. Otero's watch. I guess I took a radio. I forgot about that, but apparently I took a radio.
Why did you take these things?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Trophies.
Just,
He
did not rape them.
So his sexual fantasies were probably the binding and the torturing and watching them suffocate and die.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which would suggest, again, delayed gratification.
Yes.
What happened then?
I got the keys to the car. In fact, I had the keys, I think, earlier before that because I wanted to make sure I had a way of getting out of the house. And clean the house up a little bit, make sure everything's packed up, and left through the front door. And went over to their car, and then drove over to Dylan's, left the car there. Then eventually walked back to my car. Basically, I moved her to another bedroom, and he was already secure there by the bed. I tied his feet to the bedpost, on the bedpost, so he couldn't run. Kind of tied her in the other bedroom, and then I came back to strangle him. And at that time, we had a fight.
Were you armed with a handgun at that time?
Yes, I had a handgun.
What happened when you came back?
I actually had two handguns. Well, when I started strangling, either the garment broke or he broke his bonds, and he jumped up real quick like. I pulled my gun and quickly shot him, hit him in the head. He fell over. I could see the blood, and as far as I was concerned, I thought he was down and was out, and then went and started to strangle Catherine. And then we started fighting because bonds weren't very good, and so back and forth we fought.
You and Catherine?
Yeah, we fought. And I got the best of her, and I thought she was going down, and then I could hear some movement in the other room. So I went back, and Kevin, no. I thought she was going down, and I went back to the other bedroom where Kevin was at, and I tried to re-strangle him at that time. And he jumped up, and we fought, and he at that time shot me because he got the other pistol that was in my shoulder here. I had my Magnum in my shoulder. So
he's a little bit more proud of this because he's much more animated in his approach. So he's demonstrating, he's using symbol gestures, he's showing you, he's working his way through it. So this is a pleasant memory for him. And he wants you to buy into this excitement that he's feeling by showing you how things happened.
And a shoulder holster? Did you have it in a shoulder holster?
Yes, and I had the Magnum in the shoulder holster. The other one was a 22.
Yeah, you can see he's proud of it.
At that point in time, and I thought it was going to go off. I jammed the gun, stuck my finger in there, jammed it. And I think he thought that was the only gun I had because once I either bit his finger or hit him or something got away, and I used the 22 and shot him one more time. And I thought he was down for good that time.
All right, so
He's a lot of contempt for the men in these situations. I'd be interested to know what his relationship with his father was like.
All right, so you shot him a second time.
Yes, sir.
What happened then?
Went back to finish the job on Catherine, and she was fighting. And at that point in time, I've been fighting her. And then I heard some. I don't know whether I was basically losing control.
The way he's killing the men over the way he's killing the women is very indicative of something in his background. So I'd be interested to know what it is.
Well,
because he's differentiating between... So he ties up and shackles the men. So this is obviously a protective move to protect me from you attacking me. But he doesn't really interact with the men in terms of playing with them. And he always goes to them first and then follows through with the women. So can we find out what his...
Yeah. Can we pause?
Do you want to pause?
Yeah, 1 sec. Sorry. So his family background is that he, from what I can see, not very much info, but both his parents were working. His mother was a bookkeeper. His father was a gas service worker. Both parents worked long hours and paid little attention to their children at home. Later, he described feeling ignored by his mother in particular and resenting her for it.
Right, which may be the reason why he's giving the women so much attention.
Punishing them.
And being very dismissive of the men. But that
Well,
could also come from the army. What was he like in the military? He was in the RAF, you say, the Air Force.
Yeah, the Air Force. Well, in this case, and maybe this is why he's being dismissive about this, because it hasn't told you yet, but the man survived. So he was strangled and he was shot in the head, but he feigned death and later escaped.
Holy shit. But he still wasn't able to finger him. Right, so, okay, well, it's interesting that we don't know too much about his childhood other than he was neglected, essentially. But he wasn't abused or anything like this.
I'll do some more looking. But, I mean, in our world, and neglect is considered, neglect is considered enough if it's big enough to create MPD. So if there's enough neglect, somebody will create MPD as a coping mechanism.
Okay.
So neglect is abuse. It's still abusive. It's just not
for sure, but it's not the overtly traumatic abuse that most people would associate with abuse.
I know, and that's the problem.
So for all intents and purposes, he had a relatively uneventful childhood.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to find out, but I've never heard anything specific. So I know a lot about other serial killers' childhoods, but
what we're saying here is that he basically blamed his mother for neglecting him and all the rest of it. So maybe this is punishment.
Maybe
for her.
Well, it says. So I've just seen one statement that says he was not physically or sexually abused, and another one that says that by all accounts, his childhood was normal and unremarkable. But again, I come back to neglect being a form of abuse, and you're right. Society generally really dismisses neglect, but actually it can have a devastating impact on a child's development.
Right.
And then harbouring hatred towards his mother. There's got to be something that he's either not telling or, because we see that as well.
Remember, when he was growing up, he would have been the child of boomer parents. And the idea is that these children would be, as long as we feed you and clothe you,
yes,
then we're doing our job.
But also,
working long hours and not being there wouldn't have been seen as neglect. It would have actually been seen as good parenting.
Yeah, because you're providing. But Ted Bundy also does this. He gives a very idealized version of his childhood. And actually, I know you don't believe in it, but attachment theory, there is But one of the indicators of an avoidant attachment style and disorganized attachment style can be an idealized description of childhood, so that people are in such heavy denial. And also, if he was to concede, and we see this again a lot with serial killers, that their childhood was bad, that then it kind of explains their behavior, but then that means they don't have ownership of it. And he wants ownership.
Yeah, they wouldn't like that.
No.
Yeah.
So there is that. Also, there is a terrifying number of serial killers who got prefrontal cortex brain injuries as children. So a swing or a bat or a ball in the front of their heads.
You say you used a knife on her.
Yes.
What did you do with the knife?
I stabbed her. She said either stabbed 2 or 3 times, either here or here. Maybe 2 back here and 1 here, or maybe just 2 times back here.
You were pointing to your lower back and your
Yeah, underneath the ribs.
and your lower abdomen.
Yeah, underneath the ribs. Up under the ribs.
So after you stabbed her, what happened?
Actually, I think at that point in time, well, it was a total mess because I didn't have control on it. She was bleeding. She went down. I think I just went.
He's still learning.
Mm.
You know, it was a total mess. I didn't have control of it. So forgive me for making this mess, basically. It's not my usual standard of work.
It's disgusting.
Look at the way he's standing.
Yeah.
You know, this is an alpha stunt, basically.
So I think here he's describing where he stabbed her. In the back?
In her back?
Yeah, he stabbed her twice in the back and once in the abdomen, I think.
I just went back to check on Kevin, or at that basically same
maybe
time
not.
I heard him escape.
No, he's
No,
not.
he's
He's
not.
standing
You're right.
like that.
Jesus.
This is, you know.
Proud of myself.
Escape. It could be one of the two. But all of a sudden the front door of the house was open and he was gone.
What's the woman on the left thinking?
Oh, I tell you what.
Fuck me.
And the man? They all, like, he's just... wow.
So the woman is thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, I don't know if I can listen to any more of this. This is... I'm trying to distance myself by looking at the floor and just basically pretending I'm not here and I have no choice but to be here, or whatever the case may be. The man is... He has almost disassociated. He's trying to be professional, essentially. Are these both solicitors?
I guess so.
The woman looks as if she's almost praying.
I just was thinking that her hands look like a what you would do in church. That
Steeple.
kind of not this, but I was just thinking that, funnily enough.
Well, I tell you what I thought. I thought the police were coming at that time. I heard the door open. I thought...
But she doesn't look up. Like, she hasn't looked up directly at the questioner once since he's been talking. She's kept her eyes on the ground at all times. So there's a profound sense of embarrassment and shame in her, which is totally lacking in him.
Yeah.
And I stepped out there, and I could see him running down the street, so I quickly cleaned up everything that I could and left.
All right, now, Mr. Rader, you indicated that at the Oteros you did not have a mask on. Did you have a mask on at the Brights?
No, I didn't.
All right, so what happened then?
I already had the keys to the cars, and I thought I had the right key to the right car. I ran out to their car, and I think it was a pickup out there, and I tried it, didn't work, and at that point in time, he was gone, running down the street. I thought, yeah, I'm in trouble. So I tried it, didn't work, so I just took off, ran, I went east, and then worked back toward the WSU campus where my car was parked.
All right, so you had parked your car at the Wichita State University campus?
Yes, the campus,
How far away was the Brights residence?
Oh, I parked, what is that, 13th? And they were on 13th. Was it 17th? Yeah. I was just about 1 block south of 17th where the car was. There's a park there. I parked by that park. And then I walked to 13th to the Brights residence. So I basically ran back.
All right, so you were able to get to your car and get away.
Yes, sir.
Now let's turn to count number 6. In that count, they claim on March 17, 1977, in Sedgwick County, Kansas, that you unlawfully killed Shirley Vianne maliciously, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation by strangulation, inflicting injuries from which she did die on March 17, 1977. Can you tell me what you did on that day?
As before, Vianne was actually on that one, she was completely random. There was actually someone across from Dylan's was a potential target. It was called Project Green, I think. I had project numbers assigned to it. And that particular day, I drove to Dylan's, parked in the parking lot, watched this particular residence, and then got out of the car and walked over to it. It's probably the police report, the address. I don't remember the address now. Knocked. Nobody answered it. So I was all teed up, so I just started going through the neighborhood. I'd been into the neighborhood before. I kind of knew a little bit of the layout of the neighborhood. I've been through the back alleys, knew where some certain people lived. While I was walking down Hydraulic, met a young boy and asked him if he ID some pictures. Kind of as a Russ, I guess, or Roos, as you call it, and kind of feel it out, and saw where he went. And I went to another address and knocked on the door. Nobody opened the door, so I just noticed where he went and went to that house, and we went from there.
Now, you call these projects.
We went.
So this one was opportunistic, but the others were not, you're saying?
So it seems like well, from what he just said then, that he had planned on one person, and then because he was, and we here again, this is quite common in serial killers, that they have a target and then they can't do the one that they want, so they need to find another victim, and this is what I think is transpiring here. So I think typically he stalks, he sees someone, marks them, starts learning them, and then kills them, and the one that he had intended to wasn't in that day, didn't answer the door. Yeah.
Lucky escape.
I know.
Projects, were these sexual fantasies also?
Potential hits. In my world, that's what I call them.
So
I
you
call
went,
projects, hits.
all right,
Projects
and
and
why
hits.
did you have these potential hits? Was this to gratify some sex?
This is why I'm saying he's describing it like a job.
Mm-hmm.
His language is very much,
It's so
this
dehumanizing.
is my job.
Yeah. There's no humanity in it.
No, there's not. There's,
Just task completion.
yeah, I mean, I'm doing my job. My job happens to be serial killer. You happen
Sorry,
to be
that was...
the victim.
Yeah. So
It's
it's my
essentially
job
what
today
we're
to come and do
seeing
this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, that you know, when
So-
I said he described one of them as a willing participant. That's what I mean. It's this, like, he's arrived and she understood that this is what's going to happen, and therefore that's
We
it.
did it.
Yeah. We just
Some
got
sexual
on.
interest. Some sexual interests were.
Yes, sir. I had a lot of them, so it's just, if one didn't work out, I just moved to another one.
So, as I'm to understand it, then on the 17th of March, 1977, you saw this little boy go into a residence, and you tried another residence. No one was there. You tried another residence. No one was there, so you went to the residence with the little boy.
And I watched where he went.
What happened then?
After I tried this one
Can you
residence,
imagine
somebody
that
came to the
child
door, I
living
went
with
to the
that the
south.
rest of his life? He led the killer to his mother's. That, I mean, and because the children survived in this one, that
Yeah, I mean, the trauma and PTSD from that would be on another level.
and see,
And
there's
the
that lack of
self-blame
empathy.
and the guilt and... I mean, his lack of empathy is so extreme. So extreme.
It's like it's replaced with something else, and it's almost like there's no empathy, but it's not even that he's devoid of empathy. It's so removed that there's.
Yeah, I mean, he has
I don't know.
disconnected himself
Yeah.
from what he's doing. I mean, he has disconnected himself from the murders and from the suffering, and this is not just a lack of empathy. This is a complete disconnection from the reality of his actions.
And the sadism.
And there is an element of sadism there, yeah, absolutely. There's this disconnection. I mean, yeah. Well, I'm not. I mean, no, he hasn't talked about going to the press yet. But if he did go to the press and he talked to the press, then there's definitely an element of risk taking there.
He did
which
go
is
to the press.
Unusual in psychopaths. They
Well, a
tend
lot of
to
them
be
want
quite organised.
Well, so
he must have wanted notoriety.
Yeah, and so you see some. So funnily enough, Israel Keyes, again, who we will do at some point, towards the end of his, I don't even know what to call it, active time, campaign, like before he was caught. So he had been active for a long time, and in the sort of lead up to him being caught, and I think that's even represented by the fact that he was caught, he was starting to want recognition. So he used to call it True Crime Bullshit, which is the podcast I listened to him about him. But what he did was completely avoided any kind of sort of opportunity that he hid the bodies so well that they would never be found. The only reason that any of the bodies of his victims got found was because he pointed them to them. So he showed them where they were. But towards the end of his reign of terror, he was starting to get frustrated that people that he had taken that had gone missing were being attributed to things like, I don't know, a boat accident or a hiking accident. And he was starting to want some kind of recognition. So BTK, so the reason that he started writing again was because someone was writing a book about him. And he heard about it, so he started writing again.
So he wanted to control the narrative.
Yeah, for sure.
This house where he went in, knocked on the door, and told him I was a private detective, showed him a picture that I had just showed the boy, and asked him if they could ID the picture. And at that time, I had the gun here, and I just kind of forced myself in. I just walked in, just opened the door and walked in, and then pulled a pistol.
What gun? What pistol?
357 Magnum.
So you only had one gun?
Yes, sir.
What happened then?
I told Mrs. Esplayan that I had a problem with sexual fantasies, that I was going to tie her up, and that I might have to tie the kids up, and that she would cooperate with me at that time. We went back. She was extremely nervous. I think she even smoked a cigarette. And we went back to one of the back areas of the porch, explained to her that I had done this before. And I think at that point in time, I think she was sick because she had a nightrobe on. And I think if I remember right, she had been sick. And I think she came out of the bedroom when I went in the house. So anyway, we went back.
I've explained that I've done this to her before. Like,
not to her, but
you're not a surgeon reassuring a patient that this isn't the first time you've done this operation.
Don't worry, you're in good hands. It's
fine. I've raped, tortured and murdered people before, so don't worry, I know what I'm doing.
I mean, not raped, but apart from that, because he didn't rape, but he apparently would masturbate. His thing was watching them die. That was the bit that he enjoyed.
Serious delayed gratification.
What does that usually derive from?
It can just be a sexual thing, in that you have this idea of self-restraint, and but it's very uncommon in serial killers. Serial killers don't tend to have restraint. So the very nature of their business is nothing to do with self-constraint, but
but do they not? If they were not, would that not be reflected if they were drawing out the death of the victim?
right. But the compulsion to kill in and of itself means that you don't have self-restraint. And once you've killed one, then the compulsion to do another immediately comes back. So there's no self-restraint in this situation. You know, I can't stop myself from killing. And I imagine you would hear many serial killers say, I would have kept going. You know, serial rapists say the same thing. So to have delayed gratification, which would also be indicative of the gap, that's some serious time frame gap. And the compulsion doesn't go away, but the idea of stopping myself from doing it is a sexual release in and of itself. Because this delayed gratification of I could, but I won't is, I mean, it's like edging in sex.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking then. It sounds the same. So typically what we see in the sort of serial killer world, true crime, whatever, is that there's there's a murder, and then there's a cooling off period, and then the urge gets so strong it comes up, and and it goes again. But the cooling off period is usually gets shorter and shorter
because they're escalating.
Yeah, and that there's usually a trigger point. There's usually something going on that pushes them into the space. So a stress point. Again, Israel Keyes, things like breaking up with a girlfriend or work or whatever. There would be a thing that would a disappointment or a frustration or something, or an overwhelm of some kind, a stressor that would push them into needing to kill. But the fact that he went dormant for so long, but then so did Aaron's, who is the East Area rapist or something Night Stalker, Golden State Killer he's known as. He did the same thing. He had a reign of terror, and I mean, he's fucking terrifying. He's, oh my God, it's absolutely awful. But he suddenly stopped. And again, people were like, well, what happened? Did he go to prison? Did he something? No, he got married and had children. And same with him.
Back to her bedroom, and I proceeded to tie the kids up, and they started crying and got real upset. So I said, oh, this is not going to work. So we moved them to the bathroom. She helped me, and then I tied the doors shut. We put some toys.
She
didn't help you. She complied with you.
Yeah.
We put some toys and blankets and odds and ends in there for the kids.
Look at him talking about it like they're nurturing these children.
We tied one of the bathroom doors shut so they couldn't open it.
Well, I mean, it is possible that that's the way he sees it. If he did feel that he was neglected at their age, maybe he's compensating by giving them blankets and toys because that means they're not being neglected. Who knows? I mean, I'm surmising and making stuff up, but...
Well, that's what I would have thought, was that he's... It's almost like he's playing a family with her. We're looking after the children together.
Time frame, yeah.
We're doing this together.
More dynamic.
She went back and helped me shove the bed up against the other bathroom door.
It's almost he feels that he's in a relationship, not just with her, but with all of them, for this particular frame of time. Which is maybe why he gets rid of the husbands, so he can take their place.
Because or single mothers, because she was on her own. I don't know if she had a husband or not, but that he certainly wasn't there. And it's also interesting that they're younger children and that the women are younger, so they're 25. And
which probably would have been the age of his parents.
Yes, that's what I think too.
You know?
Um,
I mean, we could be wildly wrong, but I mean...
But it tracks, doesn't it? Because he's replaying something, and he's taking power in a
creating
situation.
Almost he's creating
Part of the family.
A temporary family dynamic every time, and he's talking about them with a familiarity that is quite terrifying.
And there's the he's just doing that thing where he's it feels like he's not the dad but the creator. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a godlike stance.
Yeah.
It's a there's a I have the power in this situation. Yes. Yes.
Benevolence. Noblesse oblige.
And then I proceeded to tie her up. She got sick, threw up, got her a glass of water, comforted her a little bit, and then I went ahead and tied her up, and then put a bag of...
I mean, what the actual fuck?
Like the fucking
got her a glass of
dissonance.
water. You know, I comforted her a little bit before I then tortured and murdered her. I mean, it's just too much.
All right. Was this a plastic bag also?
Yes, sir. I think it was, but I could be wrong in that.
You put a bag.
It was something. I'm sure it was a plastic bag. Yeah.
You say you put a bag over her head and strangled her. What did you strangle her with?
I think on that I had tied her legs to the bedpost and worked up with the rope all the way up, and then what I had left over I looped over her neck.
All right. So you used this rope to strangle her.
Yes, I think it's the same one that I tied her body with.
What happened then?
Well, the kids were really banging on the door, hollering, screaming, and then the telephone rang, and they had talked about it.
Highly inconvenient.
The neighbors were going to check on them, so I cleaned everything up real quick like and got out of there, left, and went back into my car.
Now, when you say you cleaned everything...
Well, I mean, put my stuff... I had a briefcase, whatever I had laying around, ropes, tape, cords, I threw that in there, whatever, that I had that I brought in the house.
Had you brought that to the Bright residence also?
Now, there is some... I think there's some basic stuff, but I don't remember bringing total stuff like I did to some of the others.
Was this a kit that you had prepared?
Yeah, yes, I called my kit.
All right, sir. You left the Bayan residence, and had you parked your vehicle near there?
Yeah, still in the same parking lot there, Dillon's, at Hydraulic and... What is that? Harry? Lincoln and Hydraulic.
All right, in count 7, it is claimed that on the 8th day of December 1977 in Sedgwick County, Kansas, that you unlawfully killed a human being, that being Nancy Fox, maliciously, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation by strangulation, inflicting injuries from which the said Nancy Fox did die on December 8, 1977. Can you tell me what you did on that day here in Sedgwick County?
Nancy Fox was another one of the projects. When I was trolling the area, I noticed her go in the house one night. Sometimes anyway, I put her down as a potential victim.
Let me ask you one thing, Mr. Rader. You used that term when you were patrolling the area. What do you mean by that?
It's called stalking or trolling.
So you were not working in any form or fashion.
Right. You fucking
It's
idiot.
called stalking.
He was annoyed that he got interrupted then. He was enjoying it, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was very unhappy about being interrupted with a stupid question.
As a trolling stage, you're looking for a victim at that time. And that you could be trolling for months or years. But once you lock in on a certain person, then you become stalking. And that might be several of them, but you really home in on that person. They basically become that's the victim. Or that's what you want to do.
He said trolling with a T, not trolling.
He didn't say trolling. He said trolling.
Oh, okay.
All right.
No, I wasn't working, sir.
There was a flash of amusement and a smile with his
Because there was a
solicitor.
misunderstanding. Did you see that he had said? I think he had said trawling, and the questioner asked him patrolling, and that there had been a misunderstanding. That's why he was like, "Duh."
Well, that flash of amusement was
that you misunderstood me. Oh yeah. Aren't we silly? We misunderstood it.
No, this was off my hours.
He has huge contempt for whoever's questioning him. Whoever's questioning him sounds like Dr. Phil.
But do you know what what I'm picking up is that he just wants to tell the stories of his murders.
So essentially, it's like, you know what?
He's grandstanding.
Let me tell the stories. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Like when you
Stop
read
asking me questions. I'll get to it.
When you read a story to a child and they keep going, or you watch a movie with a child and what's going to happen next? And it's like, shut up and just watch it. And he's getting irritated.
Yeah, he is. And it's basically, I'm going to answer this in a minute. So shut the fuck up. Stop interrupting me.
Yeah.
Just don't speak when the adults are speaking.
Yes. Christ.
All right, so you basically identified Nancy Fox as one of your projects. What happened then?
At first, she was spotted, and then I did a little homework. I dropped by once to check the mailbox to see what her name was, found out where she worked, stopped by there once at Hillsburg, kind of sized her up. The more I knew about a person, the more I felt comfortable with it. So I did that a couple of times. And then
again, this idea of getting to know them, building a relationship with them. Now, a relationship in his own mind, obviously, but it's still this idea of a very strange kind of intimacy.
It's a bit like limerence, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
That he's
projecting
this, creating this non-relationship out of nothing, and this identity on this woman. He's decided who she is, and that he's, as a result,
that they're going to have a relationship, and she's going to be the object of that relationship, which is possibly where this idea that they participate comes from, because in his head, remember, he's already spent time getting to know them and building this relationship with them. So when he arrives in the kitchen or in the hallway or wherever it is, this is a culmination of his research to that particular moment in time.
And they should be
there's been a
grateful.
build-up, and they should be pleased to see him.
And then they're not. I wonder what would have happened if they had been.
No, that's probably too terrifying to think about. Actually, he probably would have got bored. Because
that's what I think. That's what I'm wondering.
His whole idea of the resistance and the suffering and the suffocating and this delayed reaction. If they had have said, "Oh my God, thank God you're here. I'm so happy to see you," he would have gone, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. It would have knocked him off his
I mean, he
tracks.
probably still would have killed them, but maybe not so intimately with the suffocating, because they wouldn't have been deserving of the suffocating or of his sexual fantasy. So he may have just shot them.
He'd have got angry that they were...
That they were complying, that they weren't playing the game properly.
Yes, because they've got to be scared for him to enjoy it.
And then I just selected a night, which was this particular night, to try it, and it worked out.
All right. Can you tell me what you did on the night of December 8th, 1977?
Now, about 2 or 3 blocks away, I parked my car and walked to that residence. Knocked at the door first to make sure, see if anybody was in there, because I knew she arrived home at a particular time from where she worked. Nobody answered the door, so I went around to the back of the house, cut the phone lines. I could tell that there wasn't anybody in the north apartment. Broke in and waited for her to come home in the kitchen.
All right. Did she come home?
Yes, she did.
What happened?
I confronted her, told her there I was had a problem, sexual problem, that I would have to tie her up and have sex with her. She was a little upset. We talked for a while. She smoked a cigarette. While we smoked a cigarette, I went through her purse, identifying some stuff. And she finally said, well, let's get this over with so I can go call the police. And I said, okay. And she said, "Can I go to the bathroom?" And I said, "Yes." She went to the bathroom, and I told her when she came out to make sure that she was undressed. And when she came out, I handcuffed her, and I don't really remember whether. Sir?
You handcuffed her? You had a pair of handcuffs?
Yes, sir.
What happened then?
Well, anyway, I handcuffed her, had her lay on the bed, and then I tied her feet, and then I was also undressed to a certain degree, and then I got on top of her, and I reached over, took either her feet were tied or not tied. Anyway, I think I had a belt. I took the belt and then strangled her with a belt at that time.
All right. After you had strangled her, what happened then?
Okay. After I strangled her with the belt.
When he relives each of these strangulation stories, he excites himself.
Right.
And you can see this by the licking of the lips. So watch the next time he talks about the act of strangulation.
Okay.
Not the run-up to it, but the actual act of strangulation as it's happening. And watch his anticipation and his excitement for this particular element of each story.
Strangled with the belt. I took the belt off and retied that with pantyhose real tight. Removed the handcuffs and tied those with pantyhose. Can't remember the colors right now. I think I maybe retied her feet. What they hadn't already, they were probably already tied. Her feet were, and at that time masturbated, sir.
All right. Had you had sexual relations with her?
No. I told her I was, but I did not.
So you masturbated, then what did you do?
Dressed and then went through the house, took some of her personal items, kind of cleaned the house up, went through it, checked everything, and then left.
All right. He's established it was in Sedgwick County. I don't know exactly. For purposes of this, it's in Sedgwick County. Do you remember the address, Mr. Rader?
Remember the address? Oh, Fox. 913 or 903? No, I sure don't. I know it was on Persian, South Persian. That's all. I don't.
It was
9 something, sir, but I don't know the other digits. And,
the address, as I said,
He's not acting like... He's acting like one of the solicitors. You know,
Like he's
I'm
being
giving
helpful.
information, like he's being helpful. And, you know, his demeanor is just quite shocking.
that is really not important, as long as you remember it happened here in Wichita, Sedgwick County.
yes, sir.
All right, sir, let's turn to count 8. In count 8, it is claimed that on or about the 27th day of April 1985 to the 28th day of April 1985 in Sedgwick County, Kansas, it is claimed that you unlawfully killed a human being, Maureen Hedge, maliciously, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation by strangulation, inflicting injuries from which Maureen Hedge did die on April 27th, 1985. Can you tell me what occurred on that day?
Well, actually, kind of like the others, she was chosen. I went through the different phases.
And again, here's this relationship language. She was chosen, picked, you know, a project. You know, you're...
He's
and
honouring
it is kind
them.
of almost... Yeah, it's almost... It's almost dietic, and, you know, that you're right. There is this sense of godlike idea that I'm choosing you. I'm bestowing something on you.
And it's,
you know,
it's like a privilege
I'm bestowing,
for them.
Yeah, I'm bestowing the grace and privilege of me murdering
It's like
you.
there's such a delusion around...
There's a huge delusion here.
Yeah, it's that he's... See how we've been saying the whole time how he doesn't... There's no shame, no remorse. He's just being very matter of fact. It's almost like he thinks he's done what he was meant to do, that he was, and then this kind of, because I'm just wondering about the religion aspect, whether or not that
is he religious?
Well, he ended up working for that Christ Lutheran Church, wasn't he? He was quite high up in that. He certainly attended church and apparently was quite well liked and everything within the church, from what I remember the descriptions of him. And I think,
I don't doubt that for a moment.
So this one that he was president of the church council, that's right. This one he's about to describe, actually I might not tell you, I'm just going to let you watch. But
here's the thing, I mean, with a lot of these, I mean, a lot of the serial killers and criminals in general will see themselves as, avenging angels, or, bringing retribution or punishment, or whatever the case may be.
A vigilante.
To particular groups of vigilantes, exactly, to particular groups of people. We're not seeing this here. We're seeing somebody who truly believes that he's bringing a light into people's lives.
It feels like he thinks it's a privilege that he chose them.
That they should be grateful.
Yes. And what...
That he has... I mean, there is a sense of being a deity in this, which is very odd. Because I've chosen you.
Yeah,
this is very religious language.
Well, you described him like a medical practitioner, when you said he was reassuring her. And that we often say doctors are godlike, aren't they? They make godlike decisions, and there is something...
Well, actually, I said he was a surgeon, which is even more godlike, because they do believe they're gods.
Yeah, So there we have him, definitely...
So there is this element of, I've chosen you and I have the power of life and death over you. And
that he's entitled to it. So actually, if we go back to narcissism...
there is a huge element of entitlement here. Yeah. Absolutely.
So if we
a fait accompli, entitlement, grandiosity, all of it. You can see all of it. But it's not very overt. It's actually quite... It's similar. You would never see it by having a conversation. So... unless you knew what you were looking for. Whereas, the language itself is not so grandiose that it would trigger red flags. But it is grandiose in the actions and the delivery and everything else surrounding it. But you pretty much have to know what to look for to see it.
Do you think if you were working with him...
I would see it, yes. I mean, I would see red flags left, right, and centre.
So I think I would too, but
the average person wouldn't. They would look at somebody who was maybe a little bit overzealous for the rules and regulations.
A bit serious, a bit
power-tripped a little bit, liked to be like the level of their own importance. But by and large is quite fair in their... and reasonable in their approach, because this is what you're seeing. You're seeing somebody who enjoys being in charge, who enjoys being a leader, who likes to come across as benevolent and reasonable and understanding, but is absolutely brutally ruthless.
But can we just
in every other way?
Helpful thing, right? So we've seen him describe himself being helpful. So we noticed him doing it to the court just then. But we see him describing himself... Water. Yes, exactly.
I moved them out of the room so that they didn't have to see them die, and this kind of thing.
I put the children in the thing with toys and a blanket.
Yeah. I let her have a cigarette. I let her go to the loo.
I explained what was going to happen. And
yeah. There is this level of...
I'm a good boy.
Reasonableness. Yeah. Well, I'm a benevolent killer. I'm telling you what's going to happen. So I've explained the situation that I have.
I'm
these
not like
sexual
all
fantasies.
of the other ones.
Yeah.
I'm not like
I've explained
because I'm a kind one. And it's
I've
not your
told
fault,
you
it's me.
that I have sex. I've told you I have sexual fantasies. I've told you how this is going to play out, how it's going to work. And, you know, we're all very reasonable here, and this is how we do things.
It's fucking awful.
Stalking phase, and since she lived down the street from me, I could watch the coming and going quite easily. On that particular date, I had a commitment. I came back from that commitment, parked my car over at Woodlawn and 21st Street at Bowling Alley there at that time. Before that, I dressed until I had some other clothes on. I changed clothes and went to.
He focuses very much on mundane details, where he parked, what streets he was on, what he was wearing, how he was, what he was thinking, doing, or thinking at the time, which is, to him, these are as equally as important as who he killed.
Jesus.
And it's very odd that he would place so much importance on mundane details, which would suggest that essentially he believes that every element of his life is important.
So I that's interesting, because I wondered if he was doing that to almost deflect from the gravity of the actual act. That if I fill
there would
this
be an
all,
element of that,
right.
100%. Yeah.
If I fill
You
this
know,
all up,
if
with
I
this,
fill it with mundane, innocuous details, then maybe we can distance ourselves a little bit from the gravity of the crime itself. Certainly there would be elements of that. You see people doing that. They will fill in innocuous, mundane details in order to almost not take away from the gravity, but downplay it to a degree.
would dampen the impact of it.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about
none of the things that he's talking about is impactful in the way he's describing it.
No, because of the way he's describing it, right? The language he's
and
using,
the words
the tone,
he's using.
and the
Yeah.
So this is a bit left field, but this level of delusion and detachment, and clearly not comprehending the level of monstrosity around it.
Oh, he comprehends it.
Oh, does he? Because my question is, does he really comprehend the right and wrong of it?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, okay.
Without a doubt, he comprehends it, because he's too organized not to.
Okay, that's interesting.
You know,
so
I mean,
he can be felt.
He said he came with a briefcase of stuff.
I know.
Which means he's organized.
Yeah.
So he comprehends what he's doing. What I'm saying and what I've said is that he sees it as a job. This is what I'm getting throughout all of it. It's like, you know, I'm here to fix your TV. I'm here to murder you.
It's so mundane.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main mundanity of the murder.
I mean, this is not somebody who doesn't know right from wrong, or somebody who doesn't understand what he's done.
I just wondered.
I think there might be a little bit of Dunning-Kruger here. He might think he's a little bit more intelligent than he is.
I think you're right, because I think he thinks he's really intelligent. But then we see that in narcissism all the time, that they think they are so clever, the most clever that there is. They do. And then
and I mean, I think I see this here, that, you know, he has this.
Well, even look at the way he's presented himself, as though he is a college professor. He's not a criminal. Look at his outfit, his glasses, his hair, his beard even. It's not...
It's an intelligent academic middle-aged man.
Yes.
You know? So...
I went to the bowling alley, went in there, the precincts of bowling, called a taxi, had a taxi take me out to Park City. I had my kit with me, there's a bowling bag.
All right, that was Park City in Sedgwick County,
Yes,
Kansas?
sir.
All right, you had the taxi take you to Park City. What happened then?
There, I pretended that I was a little drunk. I just took some beer and forced it around my mouth, and the guy could probably smell the alcohol on me. I told him to let me out so I could get some fresh air, and I walked from where the taxi let me out over to her house.
All right, where does she live?
62, 42, 54. 6254? 6254. North Independence.
All right, when you walk.
I mean, he sees this as an important element of information that there is a bit of a need here to be seen as somebody, even though what he's describing is just heinous, but he has a need for validation here, that he's, you know,
helpful, important,
he's helpful,
pleasing.
and there is a need for validation, which is unusual in psychopaths because they don't tend to need validation.
But then
the narcissists do. But
well, there you are.
know.
Right. So, but this is the childlike bit. My mummy ignored me unless I was helpful, and so therefore, if I'm helpful, I feel better. If people recognise me being helpful, that makes me feel valuable.
And, you know, you'll also see me as a reasonable person rather than a monster because, you know, these things I did, I mean, I had to do.
Yeah. And
Can't you see that from the way I'm explaining it?
Yeah.
Or are you too stupid? You know, so that there is, and obviously an overestimation of his intelligence if, you know, he sent a floppy disk to,
honestly,
to the police. I mean, for fuck's sake.
And to believe that they would tell him the truth. Like, it just,
but
that
I mean,
bit is the bit that staggers me.
Well, not really, because a lot of us believe that, well, it's actually even more than that. We all believe, because it's the authority principle, and we believe that people in authority tell us the truth. So if you called the police and said, you know, can you trace this phone call? And they said, no, we don't have the technology, you would believe them because of this authority principle.
If I was about to get arrested for 10 murders, I think I probably would not necessarily...
Well, you wouldn't call the police. Well, at least I hope you wouldn't call the police. Well, exactly. But this is the grandiosity and this idea that he's more intelligent than. I mean,
let's hope that I wouldn't actually murder 10 people, Paul, rather than not call the police after I've done it. But you know.
Well, I mean, there's that. I'd rather you didn't murder 10 people.
I'll do my best.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll try not to. If I do, I'll call you instead of the police.
I mean, if you do, I'm going to react to you.
I saw the markers the whole time.
Yeah, I saw them the whole time.
Well, as before, I was going to have sexual fantasies, so I brought my hip kit, and lo and behold, her car was there.
So this is Kit. This is the tools of his trade. This is his trade. This is his job.
Yeah.
Car was there. I thought, gee, she's not supposed to be home. So I very carefully snuck into the house, kind of like a cat burglar. And after checking the house, she wasn't there. So about that time, the doors rattled. So I went back to one of the bedrooms and hid back there in one of the bedrooms. She came in with a male visitor. They were there for maybe an hour or so. He left. I waited till wee hours in the morning and then proceeded to sneak into her bedroom and flip the lights on with the light, or I think the bathroom lights. I didn't want to flip her lights on, and she screamed, and I jumped on the bed and strangled her manually.
All right. Now, were you wearing any kind of disguise or mask at this time?
No.
You indicated this woman lived down the street from you. Did she know you?
Casually, we'd walk by and wave. She liked to work in her yard as well as I like to work. It's just a neighborly type thing. It wasn't anything personal. I mean, just a neighbor.
All right, so.
I mean,
yeah, you know, it was just a neighborly thing. You know, we didn't kind of know each other.
We just
waved.
We
knew each other as neighbors, and we waved.
So
I mean, I want to keep going, you raging psychopath, but it's so obvious. Like, it's not an insult. I think he's quite proud of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you called him, I mean, that's the case with most psychopaths. If you say to somebody you're a psychopath, they'll be like, yeah, fine, whatever. Okay. It won't impact them in any way, shape, or form.
Well, it's the same with overt narcissists.
Now, on the other hand, if you said to him, I mean, you're really thick, aren't you? I mean, like, you know intelligence. Then he would go into a psychotic rage over
What if you criticised his killing skills?
Yeah, he'd be very unhappy with that, and he would defend it because, you know, he's a professional at what he does. So that'd have been like me saying to you, Helen, you know what? You're a really crap therapist. You'd be like...
I'd say, I don't believe you anyway because you don't like what I do, so whatever.
But it would be a knife in the heart. Whereas if I said to you, you know what, Helen, I don't really like you as a person, you'd be like, yeah, fine, well, that's your opinion. So the psychopaths would be the same thing.
I would
especially
be
serial
hurt if you
killers.
said that to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Normal people would be hurt, but it wouldn't stop you in your tracks and, you know, stop you from eating.
No, not for long anyway.
No, but it would impact you. You'd be a
No,
little
I
bit,
would
but
be
why
hurt
don't you
and
like
sad
me?
and-
Yeah.
Well,
Whereas
I
they
think
don't
I would be more if you said it to me at this point of our friendship. I don't like you. I would be like, what? I'd be really shocked, and then I would be like, yeah. But if you said it to me at the beginning of knowing each other, then I'd be like, okay, fine.
Yeah, fine,
Like,
whatever. Whereas
I don't know.
with
You
a
don't know
psychopath,
me
if
to
you
like
say,
me or not.
if you're a psychopath, they're like, yeah, fine, okay.
Well, it's the same.
You're
So
crap. You're a really bad killer because your cuts are messy. Rage.
that's exactly what we would see in overt MPD.
Mm.
That if you
Yeah,
say
very
somebody,
much. That would be the narcissistic rage.
yeah. But you would see, you say to someone who's more overt presenting, obviously we don't do overt and covert anymore, but who is more overt presenting, oh my God, you're such a narcissist, they would go, well, yeah, it's your problem, not mine.
Yeah.
But if you said to somebody, an overt narcissist...
And it helps me, it gets me
yeah,
what I
exactly.
want.
That's exactly it. It's got me to where I am, so what's wrong with that? But if you said to them, oh my God, you're so thick, and this, you know, you're terrible at your job and whatever, and everyone sees through you.
And you're not that intelligent,
Yeah,
are
nobody
you?
actually likes you. They would be furiously angry.
Furious.
Furious.
You're not really as important as you think you are,
Yeah.
or as popular as you think you are.
You
There would be rage.
like
there.
total
Yeah,
rage,
for
and
sure.
you would get punished so hard for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
They'd call their friends who bind, torture, and kill you.
Her bed when you
They don't have any friends.
Yeah, the bathroom, so I get some
They
light.
know people.
All right, what did you do then?
No, I manually strangled her when she started to scream.
So you used your hands?
Yes, sir.
And you strangled her? Did she die?
Yes.
All right, what did you do then?
After that, since I was in the sexual fantasy, I went ahead and stripped her, and probably went ahead and I'm not sure if I tied her up at that point in time. But anyway, she was nude, and I put her on a blanket, went through her purse, some personal items in the house, figured out how I was going to get her out of there. Eventually moved her to the trunk of the car. Took the car over to Christ Lutheran Church. This is
Did you see? Oh,
I know, it was like, oh, this is so boring. Like,
Yeah.
why am I telling you this? Like, I've told you
I
this
mean,
already.
100 times.
So I'm
This isn't even
assuming,
the interesting part of the story.
and I'm assuming that he's confessed all this in a police station.
Oh, I
And
thought
that-
so.
So this is just old for him. He's
Yeah.
like, I've already told you this. Why are you bothering?
Yeah.
Why are you making me go through
Here-
all this?
Here we
like-
see arrogance. You know, we see a great deal of arrogance and probably hubris as well. You know, I mean, he's. This is all. I mean, you know the answers to this. You're not letting me tell my story the way I want to tell it. You keep interrupting me. What is the point of me being here? Everything is written down on your pieces of paper. I've told you I've done it. I want to tell you how I've done it, but you keep interrupting me.
Yes.
And this bit that you want to concentrate isn't really an interesting part of the story.
Because they're obviously trying to work out how to sentence him based on the stories of these murders, and
Right,
then
but he
just wants to
tell-
talk about the murders. He doesn't. They want to know all the
He wants to
surrounding
talk about
details.
his technique
Yes, his
you know?
skills
and his skills.
and
exactly.
his relationship with the victim.
Mm-hmm.
He's really he's invested in those, isn't he? Those
Yeah, I mean,
relationships.
this is plainly
really,
obvious.
Yeah.
He knows all their names. There's a strange intimacy there.
But you said in the Chris Watts video that when somebody strangles somebody, it's
It's a very
an
intimate way to kill them. Yeah, very much.
It's such ownership of someone's death, even.
This is with the older church, and I took some pictures of her.
All right, you took some photographs. What kind of camera did you use?
Polaroid.
Did you keep those photographs?
Yes, the police probably have them.
All right, what happened there?
That was it. She went through, I tied it, she was already dead, so I took pictures of her in different forms of bondage, and that's probably what got me in trouble was the bondage thing. So anyway, that's probably the main thing. But anyway, after that,
that's the thing that got you in trouble.
Moved her back out to the car, and then we went east on 53rd.
We went
All right,
east.
what occurred then?
Yeah, we didn't go east. You went east with her in the boat.
With her dead body.
There was no we, which is why I'm saying this relationship, these pseudo relationships that he's building each time he talks about them is very telling in how he sees himself and how he presents himself.
Then?
Sure.
What happened then?
Trying to find a place to hide her, hide the body.
Did you find a place?
Yes, I did.
Where?
Yes, of course.
Couldn't tell you without looking
Fucking
at the map.
stupid
It was on
question.
53rd, Queen Greenwich, maybe. What's the other one? Queen Greenwich Rock. Webb. I think between Webb and Greenwich, I found a ditch, a low place on the north side of the road, and hit her there.
All right, you say you hit her there.
Well, there were some trees, some brush, and I laid that over the top of her body.
All right, so you removed the body from the car, put her in the ditch, and then laid some brush over the body.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sir, in count 9, it is claimed on or about the 16th day of September 1986 in Sedgwick County, Kansas, that you unlawfully killed a human being, Vicki Wegerle, maliciously, willfully, deliberately.
How many people did he actually kill?
Well, 10 in total that he confessed to. I think it was 10. 10 to 12. 10 that he confessed to. There are 2 suspected, I think, 1 or 2. And then there's another woman. This that you might find really interesting was that there was a lady that he had decided was going to be one of his victims. I'm not going to use the words he uses. And that he became obsessed with her. But basically, he waited for her. He was waiting for her in her house, and she didn't come home. And so he didn't get to kill her and was apparently absolutely livid that he never got to.
Oh, I can imagine, because
but he
she
never
stood
went
him
back.
up.
Yes.
No, of course he wouldn't, because he was so angry. She stood him up. They had a date. How dare she show him such disrespect? This relationship is over.
How can somebody be so delusional and really understand what they're doing at the same time, Paul?
Mm-hmm. But you have to remember, delusion and incompetence are not the same thing.
True.
So,
yeah, okay.
You know, just because I'm delusional doesn't make me incompetent.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, well, are we seeing any new behaviour? Do we need to see any more? Because I don't know that we will. And I just wondered whether we should...
No, his behaviour is the same. His behaviour is repetitive. It is state static, all the rest of it. So I'm just interested in whether they talk about why he called the police.
Well, he called the police for one time because he wanted to tell them about the body being in the house.
Okay.
So one time.
But I want to know why he called the police about the floppy disk. And I want to know why he started calling them again. For
because
what
of the book.
reason?
Because of that book that was coming out. Do you remember I told you that someone was writing a book? And so then he started writing letters again. And then he wrote...
But this suggests a desire for recognition.
Yeah, so
which is new. Which is new.
He was doing it during his active period too. So he was, he sent...
But he was talking to the media, right?
He was sending letters to the television station, just checking about police, to the television station. In fact, the police inserted, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but also maybe that's just because of our hindsight now. They inserted a subliminal message to him saying, now call the chief, with a pair of glasses that look like his. He also, he also asked for them to send him a message, and they did, a hidden message.
But this whole idea of keeping the press informed is, yeah, fine, there could be some recognition involved there, absolutely. But I mean, it's also this idea that I'm baiting you because I am intellectually superior to you and you can't find me. So there would be very much an over belief in his intellectual superiority, that he's able to bait the press.
Would you like to know what how he wrote to the police? Or
yes,
in fact, sorry, the media.
To.
It was the media. So he wrote a letter to the television station. It says another letter, but I didn't notice where the first letter was. But he wrote a letter to the television station. And in that letter, he suggested names for himself, including BTK. So he wanted to control his name.
So he wanted notoriety.
And then on top of that, then he sent a second letter, just to confirm what you've just said. How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention? He claimed to be driven to kill by factor X, which he characterised as a supernatural element that had motivated Jack the Ripper, the son of Sam, and the Hillside Stranglers.
A gift from God.
Yeah, he's special.
Yeah. But that's not psychopathy, that's narcissism.
Yes. I absolutely agree. I mean, I obviously I know more about narcissism than psychopathy.
But the psychopathy element is the absolute lack of empathy, the organization, the ability to do things without remorse, the ability to disconnect yourself, and all of this, which is the psychopathy, the grandiosity, the need for recognition, the need for notoriety, the need to be valued for my skill, the need to be feared. This is not psychopathy. This is all because psychopaths don't care enough.
No, they don't. They don't. I know that much.
To determine whether somebody is afraid of them or not. A narcissist, on the other hand, cares a lot about how they are perceived and portrayed, because they
want
need
dominance and control,
and they need to be fed, don't they? So they need this idea of being fed. So I mean, his behavior essentially has stayed exactly the same. There have been no ups or downs or peaks or troughs.
So interesting.
And it's so stable. If you were watching this without sound, there's very few triggers that you would see.
It's interesting that, because if you were watching it without sound, when you said that, my brain went to, you'd just think it was a physics lecture.
Yeah, you would. You would think that
it was boring.
Just discussing, boring, yeah, nondescript, which is possibly how he got away with it for so long. Because there's nothing remarkable about him.
He blends in, yeah. Well, so many psychopaths do, don't they? That is the skill.
Some of them are quite good looking, but then they know it, and they have this magnetism, which is part of the charisma of the psychopath. Some of them are quite good looking, and they know it. What's the name of that chap?
Ted Bundy was one.
No. Not David Koresh. The other one. The cult leader person.
Jim Jones? No?
No, he wasn't good looking. Anyway, they all, he had all of these women who were, following
Charles
him
Manson.
into court. Charles Manson, him, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, he was certainly a psychopath.
Yeah.
With charisma, and I mean, most of them. Well, I mean,
And
they
he
know
never
how to
laid a
turn
finger.
on the charm. Yeah,
Charles Manson is a fascinating case because he never committed a single murder. He got everyone else to do all the
he
murders
made
for
people
him.
to do it for him, didn't he?
Yeah.
You know, so that there is this idea. But everybody goes, oh well, you know, psychopaths are charming, but they're charming in a glib way. They're not as charismatic as a narcissist, for example.
Yes. So, and I think people do get that really confused when they're talking about psychopaths, that they're actually confusing narcissism because, like we said before, they're not all narcissists are psychopaths, but all psychopaths are narcissistic. And
Yeah, 100%.
so I think people confuse the narcissistic mirroring and ability to influence, love bomb, charm with the psychopathic elements. And so, so what people are thinking is psychopathy is actually narcissism.
Narcissism, exactly. Because, you know, whilst yes, the psychopath will have a certain level of charm, will have a certain level of glibness, they don't light up a room.
Well, because here's
like
the
a grandiose narcissist would.
And here's the thing. The reason is psychopaths, by definition, do not have empathy. There is a complete lack of empathy.
None whatsoever.
Right. Narcissists, however, in the DSM-5, it's not that they do not have a lack of empathy. It is that they use empathy and weaponize it. So they know how to use empathy. Motivational empathy is what it's called.
Well, they have cognitive and motivational empathy, don't they? And they know how to use it against
relative.
you.
Well, they even would have relative, but they use it against. So it's not used healthily. But it's the thing about it is that, you know, people make this big mistake around MPD is that there's a complete lack of empathy, and actually that's not true. And that's why someone who is narcissistic will be able to light up a room because they know how to push buttons. They know what to hook and what to bait, whereas the psychopath can't do that, literally, is
and
completely
doesn't care.
And is disabled in doing it, doesn't care unless it's going to get them something that they want in order to satisfy an urge.
But they won't be able to maintain it with the
They will never
longevity
be
that a
able to maintain
narcissist, you know. So,
No.
I mean,
Well,
I think
nor
it's
can a
interesting as
narcissist,
far as
really, but, yeah.
no, but they're better at doing it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they can't maintain these long-term relationships.
No.
Neither of them can. But you'd feel much more drawn to a narcissist in the first meeting than you would to a psychopath.
Definitely.
So
yeah.
And of course, it's also important to know that not all psychopaths murder people.
Of course.
They're not the same thing.
And it is absolutely true. And not all narcissists are psychopaths. So.
But again, the people that we're reacting to, they are psychopathic murderers.
Yes.
So, you know.
Well, Paul...
but I found him really interesting in terms of how normal he was.
And so terrifying.
And how terrifying that is.
Yeah, it's so terrifying.
You know?
Paul, thank you so much for
pleasure
putting yourself through that at my behest. And
I don't know that we gave anybody any insight that they didn't already know, but we'll see.
Well, I don't know. We'll see what people think. Let us know. Like, subscribe, leave us a comment. And I guess we'll be back soon.
I'll see you in the next one. Yeah,
See you next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.